Did you have that one coworker who pushed things too far and ruined it for everyone? Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for the support. I used to work at a place where there was a front desk that was a bit lonely. It was often a quiet gig, so most people took a paperback book so they could sit there quietly reading while waiting for customers to turn up. Everyone eventually had a shift on the desk. Then one day, Colin had the front desk shift. Colin was into his sword and sorcery fantasy novels and turned up with one of the biggest books I've ever seen, easily well over 1,000 pages, possibly nearer 2,000. Well, there was no way he was reading that subtly on the front desk. The duty manager saw it on the CCTV, went out and confiscated it, and within an hour, there was a memo about how reading was not permitted during work shifts. So, Colin ruined that sweet little time for everyone. Next story. Had a job while studying at university stacking shelves in the local Wilco, mostly after hours so no customers in the shop, and after store closing, we'd all listen to music or audiobooks on earphones. One bloke would spend the entire shift on a call to his wife, which would have been fine, except he'd often stop working to hold the phone up and switch the video on. This eventually got flagged up on the CCTV, and we were all banned from using earphones on shift, having to spend an entire night shift stacking shelves in silence. Next story. We are 50% of our time in the office, 50% from home but flexible, so nobody really cared if you spent the morning in the office and then went home at lunch to let dogs out or for the school pickup. One guy would come in for 10 minutes, grab a free coffee, and loudly announce he was away, saying goodbye to everyone smugly. Managers now get a report on the number of hours people are working and are told to put people on disciplinary if it dips below. What's worse is that guy left for another job, so ruined a good thing for us all, and didn't even suffer the consequences. Bastard. Next story. Worked in a soulless call center years ago, and management didn't mind us going to the pub for Friday lunch and having a beer with our food. Well, Roger joined us one week and went mad on shots. Got back to the office, and he passed out in the toilets and had to be checked over by paramedics. Bye-bye pub time for all. Next story. I worked doing PPM and repairs as a subcontractor for various hotels. A lot of the hotels used to give us free lunches at the staff canteens. One of the other contractors under the same contracting firm once picked every last piece of meat out of the big pot of chicken curry in the staff canteen and ate it all. And that was the end of that. We also used to get to stay at the hotels we were working at pretty regularly until one of the contractors, different one, brought his wife and kids without the hotel's permission or knowledge. And then his wife kicked off being a Karen in the hotel bar, demanding free drinks. Next story. This happened before I joined, but at one office, they had formal dress code, so suit and tie, etc. I really don't like this, and most places these days that aren't client-facing don't seem to adopt it. This place in particular, we had zero interaction with the public, and so to me, it seemed entirely unnecessary. I later found out that it used to be casual dress code, but one guy came in wearing bright Bermuda shorts and sandals every day, and the higher-ups didn't like it, and so decided it had to be formal from then on. Next story. Yeah, we had summer BBQs and Christmas parties at local bars and restaurants. Money was put behind the bar, so drinks were free for us employees. They were fun. My manager at the time got aggressive drunk, threatened to fight the sales team for making his life hard, and almost punched the elderly husband of our receptionist because he was intervening for peace. We didn't have work parties anymore. Damn you, Matt. Next story. I work half my shifts at night, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., in an office by myself. After midnight, it's pretty quiet, and the phone doesn't ring much, but we're monitoring alarms and responding to incidents if they occur. Our old boss was cool with us bringing in an Xbox or PlayStation, as long as we didn't hook it up until after midnight, and we got all our admin work done. Well, 2 of my colleagues decided to start stretching the rules, starting to play earlier and earlier until they'd literally be plugging everything in on handover. Then they stopped doing their admin work too, so now none of us are allowed to have gaming equipment in the office. Thanks, Aaron and Ben. Next story. We used to be allowed to have a few drinks on the bar if it was busy. If something had gone down, basically most nights we'd get a couple of subtle bevs, and it made the whole night feel like a party. It was great. One girl hadn't even been there a month, ended up so drunk she got kicked out by security because she was so paralytic they'd not even considered she was supposed to be working. No more bebs for anyone. Next story. I worked at a place where the expenses policy was explained to me by the head of finance as, just don't take the piss. It worked really well and saved a lot of hassle as everyone was sensible. Then one manager started taking all of his one-to-ones at a high-end sushi restaurant and expensing it. He was going multiple times a week. Shortly after, we got an expenses policy. Next story. Think I might have been that guy in one call center. I pretty much completed every mini-clip game that was completable at work. One day, playing Motherlode, I found out that there was an endgame boss, which is Satan, who had been disguised as Mr. Nodus. This was mind-blowing for those of us in our pod. So as everyone gathered round to watch me destroy Satan, it drew the attention of the actual Satans of the office, the service flow team. Not long after, Miniclip was blocked from the browser. Next story. Used to have an annual dinner dance. One year, the free booze was flowing and all hell broke loose. Two men got into a fist fight over a woman. One of the highest up members of staff got so drunk that she got her tits out and ran around the venue. No more office parties. Next story. I work in a nightclub. Line clean, I throw away about 50 liters of beer. So the staff and I used to do the sensible thing and drink it. It was always a chill time. We all had a drink and a laugh and some bonding with our coworkers. Until a couple of the lads decided at 9 a.m. that their piss-up wasn't over, so they left the rest of the group, got kicked out of one pub at 9 in the morning, and then picked a fight in another before 10 a.m. I was woken up by a fellow pub manager reporting that my staff are on a drunken rampage and going to get themselves arrested. FFS. Up I get, drive into town and find the two little reprobates. Gave them a serious dressing down, remanded them that one line clean party is a privilege, not a right, and they are putting the company into a state of disrepute. I just can't trust them anymore, and I can't have the line clean party and specifically exclude those two. So now, I pour 50 liters of good beer into the nearest sink with a tear in my eye. Pair of tits they are. Next story. Yes, I took a job managing a bakery, and there were a lot of problems when I took over. Very messy, very cluttered, very inefficient. Staff at each other's throats, etc. Mismanaged hours, rodents, etc. I managed to push really hard and work hard to sort it out and solved all the issues. But one member of staff was an older guy who, looking back, was like the Stig of the dump. He loved the mess and problems because it gave him something to complain about all the time. Eventually it became a nice workplace. No staff turnover anymore, all clean, 5-star hygiene, no mice, no flies, etc. Then he decided, since he didn't have anything to whine about anymore, but he still owned a motor mouth, was to start humming all the time, constantly. From the second he got there to the second he left. I would have to work on the production table with him 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and whatever song on the radio was, he'd hum the tune. Out of tune and out of time, as loud as the song, every song. And if there was a break between songs, he'd sing the main hook from the song, over and over again. Even when I turned the music off thinking it would stop him, he'd hum a part of a song over and over again, sometimes for over an hour. Once he was stressed because he had a big order on, the radio was off, and he paced back and forth, humming a monotone all day. Eventually, everyone started wearing a single earbud, or 2 earbuds, just to drown him out, and he started singing loudly instead. Usually only knew the lyrics to 4 to 5 songs, so he would sing a different song over the one playing on the radio. I usually thought I could take anything, but the humming broke me and I quit. Thankfully, found a better job as a result, but damn that guy and help the people working there now. Hopefully the new manager is terrible, and the place gets infested with mice again so he can spend his time complaining instead of humming. Next story. We used to have drinks at work once a month on a Friday afternoon. The office fridge would be stacked to the gills with alcohol. Nothing ever got out of hand, and people were generally sensible. On Monday, someone would come in, collect all the unopened alcohol, and put it somewhere until the next Friday. One bright spark noticed this, came in on a Saturday with a duffel bag and emptied the fridge. The person who was tasked with tidying up noticed there was no leftover alcohol and alerted management. The CCTV was checked, and it quickly became apparent what had transpired. Duffel bag guy was fired, and Friday Works drinks ended. Next story. Had a job where the bosses were really cool and relaxed. If you needed to pop out for a phone call or a quick cigarette, they didn't mind as long as you were doing the work. They just trusted us to get on with it. 19-year-old idiot joined, and went out to vape every 5 minutes, would go on his phone all day and never got anything done. Suddenly, you weren't allowed to go out anymore outside of lunch and had to fill out sheets detailing exactly what you'd gotten done that day. Absolutely ruined a dream working environment. Next story, I'll call her Daisy. We had a generous sick pay arrangement. We got full pay no matter how long we were off. Daisy took the piss. Her attendance in her last year was around 30%. She eventually got fired, and the whole sick leave policy got overhauled. Statutory sick pay only. It happened years ago, but we still curse Daisy. Next story. Not something I used to do, but a lot of my unreliable colleagues did. Whilst working night shifts at the airport, some would catch a short nap, which you could say is reasonable, but most colleagues would try to sleep for 5 hours or so. Most of them even bring in a small pillow or blanket, and there's this one lady who decides to bring in a blow-up mattress every week. The kicker. She and the rest are still getting away with it. It does and did annoy me, as work/incidents often got shifted to folks like me who were reliable, trustworthy, and stayed awake. Next story. We had heavily subsidized vending machines for cans of drink and chocolate bars until someone decided selling them would be a decent side hustle and would clean them out as soon as they were filled, so management stopped filling them. A different place I worked had a Coca-Cola machine until the person responsible for ordering the cans for it discovered Pepsi was marginally cheaper, like 10 pence a pallet cheaper, and stopped ordering off Coke. They very quickly sent a maintenance engineer to do routine checks and took the machine away when they saw the contents. Turns out, Pepsi charged more than Coke for rental, and the managers wouldn't pay the extra, so we lost our drinks machine. Next story. We all had company vans, and the unwritten rule was take a gallon fuel can, and each time you fill the tank, have a gallon for your car. Until idiot Bollock got his wife to follow him to the petrol station and fill both cars up at one go. A week later, a new form turns up which closely monitors fuel consumption. Next story. Used to work in the games industry, working crunch, overtime, for weeks if not months on end. The company used to buy our evening meal from local takeaway until folks started taking the piss ordering loads. So they put on a 10-pound limit for each person. Company was based in a posh town, and usually there was only a couple of different dishes on each takeaway menu that were within the tenner limit. For example, if it was Pizza Express night, you could pretty much only get margarita. So yeah, thanks whoever took the piss. Next story. We used to have a perk that we could go to the local bookstore and buy computing books, charge it to the company. After finishing reading, we would leave the books in the bookshelf at work. We had almost a complete O'Reilly library. However, when one of my young colleagues decided to buy a full year worth of textbooks for nursing school for their girlfriend, this perk quickly got shut down. It got a bit tricky to explain for auditors why the IT people needed nursing skills. Next story. In India, but still felt I had to say this here, we live in company, hospital quarters, and rent and home electricity has been free forever. Recently, the cardiologist bought an electric BMW and started to charge it here. And lo and behold, now they have staffed charging us all for electricity. Thank you, cardiologist. You should have been mindful of us pediatricians, making peanuts compared to you cardiologists. Next story. I once worked at an office where you used to be able to take a self-care/duvet day if you woke up and just weren't feeling work. It was supposed to be a one-off, maybe once or twice a year thing, and we were trusted to just be sensible with it. That trust quickly evaporated, and duvet days ceased to exist when some staff immediately started taking duvet days on a weekly basis. Selfish Oz ruined a good thing for everyone. Next story. I once worked at a place that had a glitch in the digital clocking on system, where if you took your unpaid 1-hour break during the time it had assigned you for your later paid break, it wouldn't register, so you'd get paid for it. So say it was expecting you to have your unpaid hour at 10 a.m., then a paid 30-minute break at 1 p.m. If you had your unpaid hour around 1 p.m., it'd be paid. I never mentioned it to anybody, but I was making sure that I was taking every break to match the glitch after I realized. A while later, there was a company-wide overtime ban for the week, where they were sending anybody home early that had gone over their scheduled hours. And my extra hour a day had meant that I was getting sent home 4 hours early on the Friday. I was out the door before they'd finished the sentence telling me to go home. One lad, that didn't know about the glitch but must have triggered it at some stage that week, was adamant that he hadn't done any extra hours. arguing with HR that were trying to send him home to the point where they looked at his hours with him, noticed the glitch, and brought the whole thing crashing down. The moron could have just gone home early with full pay and kept his stupid mouth shut. He must have cost me thousands. Next story. My boss was most insensitive. He called B the Grim Reaper. 3 of my family died. My father, my nono, Nan, my best friend. All within 18 months. I can never forget or forgive him. Next story. I was wrongly accused of running a sweet deal. I worked in a fabric shop. If I pulled extra shifts, the boss would put the hours on a tab, and I could take fabric instead of cash. I was making a lot of clothes professionally, so this worked out great for me. It was my idea. The big boss wanted a load of fabric gone, including some silk, and priced it at £1 a meter. I asked if I could use my store credit, and he said yep, he wanted the fabric gone, and me taking it solved that issue. I checked with my coworkers, telling them to buy what they wanted first. I was going to take away everything that came out of a silkworm's butt. The next day, I left with 100 meters of silk. Boss was happy, I was happy, COWORKERs happy, but the manager hated me. So she told everyone staff were forbidden from buying fabric in the sale because I took advantage. Happy ending, she was fired for stealing before the next sale season, and Big Boss explained there was no such ban. Next story. I used to work for a fashion house where the employees could buy their clothes at 70% discount. Some idiot started to buy and resell it on eBay. The employer stopped the discount scheme right after that. Next story. Worked in a theater bar once. It was quite chill, and after shift we were often allowed a cheeky half pint. A couple of new people started smashing drinks after and during shift, and the tills started being quite a bit down. The bar shut shortly after and was outsourced. Also, another bar I worked at, a new live-in assistant manager started working with us. His fave drink was Guinness. The month he started, the Guinness count was 50 pints down, a tad more than wastage. Everything became much stricter after that. Next story. The stupid teacher who got legless at the prom and caused a whole staff alcohol ban the next and following years. To enforce it, there was a dry bar only. Leadership, however, were seated at their own table and were served wine with their meals, of course. Next story. We used to be allowed the leftover food from meetings. They were always the worst sandwiches. So one receptionist stopped putting out the good stuff and saved them for herself. No more leftovers for anyone. Next story. I used to work admin in the NHS for a department that ran weekend clinics, usually supposed to finish around 7 p.m. The team were solid, saw everyone quickly, and would even ring patients like, hey, we've had a cancellation, come in earlier if you can. Most weekends we'd be done and out by 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. until someone decided to tell upper management, oh yeah, everyone was seen by 5 p.m. and we all left early. And that was that. Now you're not allowed to leave until your shift end time, even if there's literally nothing to do. They even enforce it over the hospital's internal messaging system. Next story. I don't think that this was Colin's fault. Everyone else was reading on desk duty. He just followed suit and didn't understand the need to be discreet. Next story. We weren't allowed to read books at desks, so I just used to find PDF versions of books online and read them during downtime. Better than reading the Daily Mail online like every bugger else did blatantly. Next story. I was once inadvertently the prick. I work in software. One company had a particularly strict head of it who insisted on locking down internet access to the point that we couldn't get onto Stack Overflow or other useful sites for our job. After a few years, all new hires, 20 or so, had no such restriction, so I asked if I could be changed to the new system so I could access the useful sites. Turns out the new hires were given unrestricted by accident, so they locked everyone down again. Next story. We had to write a new work clothes policy because someone turned up to work in a miniskirt with no underwear on, then bent over. Because of this, we actually had to write a policy which was way more restrictive because management got involved. Next story. We were having a nice little off-site in HQ in London, which involved flying in our colleagues from Europe and America. About 24 flights plus hotels all told. Fancy restaurants, 2 nights in a row. It was on the back of a good year. A little reward. We'd done it before and were planning to make it a yearly thing. Anyway, one of the Americans bebooked his flight last minute, and business class, close to 15,000, when his boss was flying for 500. The travel system didn't reject it somehow. Completely blew the budget. The expense got escalated up 3 levels when it came through. Close eye on the department now, no more offsites. Next story, work somewhere you could take your dogs into work. It was amazing. An office full of hounds, bliss. Someone joined and brought their flea-infested dog in. No more office dogs allowed. Gutted. Now work in an office where the dogs have their own rules and regulations. Third-party insurance, fully jabbed up and flea'd and wormed. Next story, work nights, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. There was an understanding that once all the admin stuff was done, you could do what you wanted for the rest of the shift to keep yourself awake and be ready for any emergencies that may arise. We used to crack admin out by midnight, 1 a.m.-ish. One guy decided to work backwards one night and have his free time as soon as he logged in and save the admin for later. Unfortunately, he got an emergency call around midnight that needed his attention, and none of his admin work for the shift got done at all. He had no answer for them about what he was doing for the hours before he got the call. Soon after that, there were cameras, admin trackers, internet blockers. He ruined it for everybody. Next story. Everyone had work credit cards that were never really audited, so we were always going out for nice meals and drinks, and there were no real limits. Just don't take the piss. One work night, a group ended up in a strip club, and that was the end of the fun for everyone. Next story. A contractor in a fairly senior position was needed on a Teams call with a director or two and the CEO on a Friday afternoon. Couldn't be reached. Wasn't picking up on Teams or his work mobile. When asked the next week about it, he was all, "Oh, you know, I was working from home." He hasn't appreciated that his peers were still working and, more importantly, were contactable when working from home, and hasn't just binned it all off to go to the pub. Working from home was a dirty word after that for a good while. Then, COVID hit and solved the issue. Next story. There's one guy at work that got a warning for inappropriate behavior, who went on to be inappropriately to 2 more people. That guy who physically threatened half the night shift, then threatened the other half of the night shift. There's that one guy who bullied a manager to the point she cried 3 times, separate occasions. And that guy who took the piss out of the guy having a mental breakdown, it's all the same guy. He's still there because he said he'd kill himself if he lost his job. I'm the problem because I don't want to work with the guy. Next story. Many years ago, I worked in my local Boots. I think their policy states you can only wear ear studs and 1 nostril piercing. Well, I have quite a few facial piercings and just kept them in. No one noticed for weeks, till the little emo kid on the pharmacy kept whining to his supervisor about it. After that, I had to take them all out every shift. And the other staff that had the odd one had to take out theirs too. Next story. Years ago, I worked at a cinema. Had an assistant manager who was on a power trip. We used walkie-talkies to keep in touch. The general manager and house manager were always Mr. Whoever when called on the radio. The assistant manager had come up through the ranks by being a crawler. He took an absolute crap fit because nobody called him Mr. The staff retaliated by calling everyone Mr. or Miss on the walkies. Lasted about a week till we got the memo from the house manager about proper titles. Next story. A rotating shift job I had years ago used to let people swap shifts. What happened was, a group of us who liked doing night shifts ended up as the sort of permanent night shift crew. We liked it. The place was quieter, and the bosses never did nights. Plus, our crew were a bunch of nocturnal weirdos who all got on well together. The folks who hated nights never had to do them. The facility had full shift cover. There was no pay difference between shifts, so there was no financial advantage to doing nights. Win-win for all. You'd think till Susan joined. Susan didn't like nights herself, but Susan thought it was unfair that we were doing all the night shifts and no day shifts. Remember, there was no financial advantage to doing nights here. Susan moaned and complained to the bosses so much that they stopped shift swaps and made everyone go back on rotating shifts. They lost staff because the parents of young kids and the folks who couldn't cope with night shifts simply quit. Next story. We occasionally leave at 3:30 p.m. instead of 5 p.m., only if all parcels have been posted off-site and/or secured. Micromanager Marge grumbles about it, but on busy days, twice a week, we are often there till 6:30 p.m. It all seems to balance out. We have a colleague, Daryl, that leaves at 6:30 p.m. every night for their 2-hour commute. Traffic is less busy then, he says. Daryl has spent the last few months actively bullying and pressuring the micromanager Marge to institute a hard deadline finish of 5 p.m. for early days. Because why should we get to go home on when he has to stay till 6:30 p.m.? It's been explained multiple times to this complete waste of a human husk. He can drive home earlier than his 7 p.m. schedule, and that he has free will. He doesn't understand. That's the time I leave, though. I have indentations in my palms from wanting to deck him daily. Next story. How about the opposite? Company said no more smoking rooms. All smoking had to be done outside. This meant small gaggles of smokers standing around just inside the front fence, which a visiting high-up said looked bad. So it was changed to no smoking on site at all, which led to smokers lined up along the outside of the front fence, standing pretty much in the road. So they have up and built them some smoking shelters out the back and out of sight. Next story. We used to get what was referred to as ghost overtime. So if the manager desperately wanted some work done, you could say to him, "I'll do it for 2 hours pay," for example, when it may only take 20 minutes. Not really one person's fault that it got stopped. I think the company was just changing how things work. But one guy did take home over double his usual wage one week. Next story. Someone at my previous job got promoted on the day he was attending the free Christmas lunch in the canteen, which included wine. They would do it over a few days so everyone could go. The woman giving him a lift couldn't find him anywhere, so in the end, sent a couple of guys to check the gents' toilets on each floor. They found him passed out in a stall, and maintenance had to get him out. The next year, there was no wine with the Christmas dinner. Next story. Worked in an office where the boss used to allow us to nip out on a Friday and get a breakfast barm as long as we didn't all go at once. 5 girls went at once, after 2 lads had already nipped out to pick up sandwiches for a few people. Got full breakfasts in boxes, sat there letting phones ring while they ate, and claimed they'd done nothing wrong. The 2 lads got a blocking for not accurately predicting the future that the girls were going to go en masse 10 minutes after them. Next week, no more Friday breakfast buddies. Next story. That was an anticlimax. I used to work nights at a call center, and now and again we used to take turns, having a nap. I may have taken it too fair when I took in a blow-up bed and hid it behind one of the cabinets, inflated. It went months unnoticed, until the company was going through some big changes, and someone from head office noticed it while shadowing the night shift to see what we actually did. We all got made redundant a couple of months later. Next story. When food was hitting the end of its shelf time in our McDonald's, our store manager would let you take it if you were hungry, so long as it was recorded. In fact, they used to encourage it with the promo items, so you could tell customers how it tasted. Basically, don't take the piss, and I'll let you have a nugget here or a cheese melt here. This lasted 6 months, until Steven took his bag into the kitchen, emptied out as much as he could into his bag, and went home at the end of his shift. After that, your lunches were made up by managers. Food was constantly wasted, and no one was allowed samples. The worst part was the culprit who led to the change got sacked a week later for theft. Next story. An ex-employer had a rule when staying in hotels that had a 30-pound meal allowance plus 1 drink. A hotel we stayed at regularly would let us put through 1 bottle of wine as our drink, which was a big reason why we loved that hotel. This went on for literally years, and was known about by loads of guys, until a new young guy bragged about it in front of management. That hotel was then removed from the approved list. Next story. We are allowed to use our phones, and even play music in the kitchen, as long as the customers can't hear it. Open kitchen. This guy just doesn't get it, to the point where he had to be told by the waiting staff to turn it down 8 times. 8 times to turn it down. They're now considering not letting us have phones on shift anymore, so that's cool. Nice one, Jay. Hope your dubstep was damn worth it. Next story. Years ago, in an American Electronics multinational staff meeting, the American management asked for feedback. One guy complained the cups didn't sit properly in the saucers. I don't think they ever trusted us again. Next story. Worked at an office with like 400 people. Company itself was really generous with stuff for staff. Early Fridays, big Christmas, and summer parties at some seriously top-level places. You also got to go to a birthday lunch, just at the in-house canteen, with everyone else who had a birthday that month. There was free wine, and honestly, everyone did really push it. 3 or 4 big glasses in a couple of hours. Then I go to one, and one guy right at the beginning just picks up 2 bottles and plonks them down in front of him, nevis them steadily over the hour, whilst the meek bastard running the thing just politely ignores him. Guy goes back to his desk after work and is just aggressive with everyone. I didn't see the full aftermath, but police were called. Terrible. But like I said, company was great. Christmas party still continued even after we were banned from 2 different venues. Next story. My uncle used to work in some kind of factory in the 80s. They had quotas of how many of a certain product they had to make in a certain week, and the staff were rotated weekly between making different products. If you made above quota, you got a bonus. You can see this is going. There was one particular product that they had worked out wrong. Someone must have forgotten to carry a 1 or something. Think the quota was to make 80, whereas 800 was easily manageable. Each member of staff knew about this, and it was designated Rest Week, where staff could take it easy doing the bare minimum all week. Cue Uncle Ian getting a turn on Rest Week. He saw the opportunity to make a massive bonus and cracked on, despite warnings from colleagues. Due to his productivity, at the end of the week, the job was reassessed, and that was the end of Rest Week. Uncle Ian was ostracized and called Piggy for the rest of his time there. Sounds about right. The family all thought he was a bit of a CU next Tuesday, too. Next story. I worked at a bank. We had a cash counter. It could count money very quickly, and in general was very accurate. We could use it to count out money for clients if they were okay with it. This was great for the clients who came in and wanted $700 in $1 bills. The cash counter was in teller station 1, but could be moved as needed. Then came Angie, who started working out of station 1. Angie was all kinds of problematic. She wouldn't balance her drawer, which would lead to her being off at the end of the day. However, she would compulsively run her cash through the cash counter. She would do it non-stop for 8 hours, only pausing to help customers, and we weren't a high-traffic location. I did the math one day, and in the course of the day, she ran the machine enough times to count out $2.9 million if she were counting $100 bills. Because she was constantly off, Angie was not allowed to have more than $10,000 in her drawer. So why was she counting money so much if she wasn't balancing her drawer? No one knows. Eventually, our manager took the cash counter away since the constant noise was disruptive. The group got punished because Angie was insane, and our manager didn't want to confront her directly. So everyone had to count everything by hand. Next story. Everywhere I've worked. Lax breaks? Yeah, someone takes the piss and it gets monitored. Can nip out for appointments? Yeah, someone has a dentist. MOT every other day. Early start? Finish? Nobody fussed about your clockings. Yeah, someone will roll in at lunchtime every day and leave at 3 p.m. Next story. One of the neighboring units where I worked used to play music because the in-store radio had broke down. Everyone was respectful with what they put on and made sure it was suitable for a retail environment. That came to a swift stop when one guy put on his own music that contained a lot of profanity and someone complained. Now they gotta work in silence until the radio gets fixed, and as it's the store radio, it's not very high on the company's list to fix. Next story. I once worked in a college where the maintenance staff, my team, were banned from attending all future staff parties. The main reason being that one of my colleagues got wasted and gave the principal a lap dance in front of his wife. Next story. Had a coworker that brought an XL George Foreman grill into work and made himself a fry-up for lunch in the office. Now we are only allowed to eat hot food in the canteen, and we aren't allowed to bring in any cooking appliances. Next story. Extra long breaks. Instead of 2 15-minute coffee breaks and a 30-minute lunch, pretty much everyone was taking up to 45 minutes each break. The workload was still being accomplished by the end of the day. If it's busier, we would skip the last break to get stuff completed. Well, new guy comes in, and it's fine for the first few months. Then he starts leaving with unfinished work. His failing to meet his deadlines made management look closer at the cameras. It turns out he was taking hour-long breaks, as well as would just sit in the bathroom playing on his phone for 20-plus minutes. He even brought his VR headset in there to play with. They cracked down on the long breaks after that. Next story. I worked at a store that didn't do inventory counts. If you work in retail, you know this is a godsend, because it was pretty hard to shoplift from our store. So one of my coworkers decides this means he can steal crap from the store without anyone noticing. But of course, then people are trying to sell things that are supposed to be in stock, but mysteriously aren't. And a month later, we're doing damn inventory counts. Next story. We always had a fun summer BBQs party for all locations. And every year, it would be at a different location. This always meant hijinks to mess with the host location, and sometimes stealing some random crap. We managed to take a Red Bull table with us without anyone noticing once, but all in good fun. Then one time when we hosted it, everyone else made sure to cause as much havoc as possible. Some plastic deck chairs went into the bonfire. One idiot was breaking every light bulb in the string of lights with a fork. Food was thrown everywhere. Just to name a few things that happened. Took us 3 days to clean it all, and shortly after, we were told no more big BBQs parties. Next story. We were the employers, and one day, we thought it would be nice to have a glass of wine for one of our team's birthday. Well, birthday girl absolutely couldn't handle her alcohol, had 2 glasses, and was basically off her rocker. Not in a very bad way, no fighting or aggression, the exact opposite. Over the top laughing, running all over the place, just acting like a young teenager when she was early 40s. Anyway, that was the end of that tradition. Next story. I have to own up to being that bastard boss. When I joined a company back in the 1990s, there was a big international audit department. The head of the audit group showed me this wheeze, where they had stolen a receipt book from a Hong Kong restaurant, and everyone who could claimed a meal that they supposedly had there using a receipt from this stolen restaurant receipt book. I never had the opportunity to use this wheeze myself, and I had a rather Calvinistic attitude to expense fiddling. When I became director of the company a couple of years later, on the morning of the announcement, literally, the piano stopped playing in the office. One of my first acts was to call in the head of the audit group and told him I wanted that stolen receipt book on my desk within the hour, and that no receipts from that restaurant would ever be reimbursed again. Expense claims immediately fell, and all spurious claims for shampoo, razors, soaps, cough medicine, minibar usage also fell drastically. I was by no means parsimonious, but outright theft was quite another matter. Next story. We had an assistant to the salespeople, and there were times when she had not that much to do, so she picked up knitting. It was wild to watch her knit her way through the day, while the chaos whirled around her. She didn't last, and that position didn't either. Next story. We can get corporate Amexes designed for use when traveling with work, to pay for meals, fuel, etc. We used to be able to use them for whatever we wanted to buy for personal use, and people would use them as the rewards you'd get for just using it for a weekly shop, or just general use were really good. As long as you cleared it by the end of the month, the company didn't care. This was great, until one guy used it to buy his wife a car for around £10,000. He cleared it by the end of the month, but the company weren't happy, and now you have to have a good reason to use it for personal use and pay it back. ASAP. He flew too close to the sun, and we all got burnt. Next story. This was years ago, but my workplace at the time used to receive extra cases of Coke Zero from our drink supplier as freebies. The idea, to my knowledge, was to try and incentivize us to stock more of it in the long term if it proved popular. My boss used to leave the free cases in the staff room for the team to have one on their breaks. Sounds good, right? Well, it had to stop when a guy on the team was caught filling up a carrier bag with every single bottle. And on a separate occasion, a different guy pinched another case out of the stock room when the free ones ran out. Next story. Worked front desk at a hotel where we were allowed a hot/cold drink on shift. Sometimes multiple or a little croissant. New guy came, he was getting sandwiches, coffee, soda, and almond croissant every day. He racked up the biggest bill we've ever had at the front desk, and was let go for that and other reasons. Our coffees were then taken away as a privilege. Next story. A lot of companies used to have a designated amount of time off for whatever you wanted, and a separate designated for sick time off. So many people abused the sick time that these companies changed to a set amount of PTO, personal time off, or FTO, flexible time off. Next story. Way back in the day when mobile phones were a new thing and expensive, the company I worked at decided to issue them to the service engineers to help with call-outs and cover, etc. We were explicitly told that private calls were only allowed in cases of emergency. Anyways, after the first month, one engineer had racked up a bill that was more than the boss's monthly salary. And just like, no more mobile phones. Next story. One of my coworkers started having a relationship with my father. She took great joy in telling me this information in the kitchen, in front of several other people, quickly moved to remote working 5 days a week. Next story. I run an induction for new staff. It's a big organization, so most weeks we have new people. They get given an itinerary, and we check in with them every day. Realized that one of them was an hour late one day and hadn't told us. A little digging by my boss, and found out that he had been significantly late, at least an hour, every day except 2. I now wait at the door like a primary school teacher every morning. Next story. I work in it. Our manager was firm but fair and trusted us. We would tell him we doing OT at day X from X to X. He would never really question it and sign it off. A coworker who took the mick a lot decided to do 12 hours of OT in one day, which made finance team flag it up, and turns out he pulled these stunts a few times. Anyway, director of it got copied in email and finance was like, "Why he doing so much OT? Do you need more staff? Blah blah. And why can't you do work during work hours?" And since then, management stopped all OT. Now management tell us when/if we want to do it, and picks the hours and tells us to record everything and how long it takes. Next story. Waitress at weddings. Some of the older waiters would let us have a glass of bubbly at the end of a shift, until a couple new bar guys got hammered behind the bar and absolutely no drinking was allowed. Next story. Everyone was stealing. I actually wasn't because I felt well paid. Maybe I'd steal some food or whatever on my break, but never cash. The company had a 20-pound till loss limit per person, per shift. So you could pocket 19 pounds and 99 pence, and it wouldn't flag up to the office and would balance. A woman stole 50 pounds. Still pisses me off thinking about it because people were making good money from a crap company. Lots of loopholes in the company until people ruined it. Next story. We had unlimited holiday. Our standard 25 days paid, and then whatever you needed unpaid too. Most people didn't use it. Some used 1 to 5 days per year. 3 idiots totally abused it. One guy had 32 days unpaid in a year. He basically dropped to a 4-day week without the paperwork, so the boss threw a fit. Next story. Have flexi time used to be able to leave at 3:30 p.m. occasionally? Was preferred to leave 4 p.m. at earliest, of course. One colleague went home at 3:30 most days, and now can't leave till 4 p.m. Next story. My workplace was very relaxed when I started. So long as work got done, the boss didn't really care. Want to take 10 smoke breaks a day? No problem. Cue the new hire, who took the chill atmosphere to mean he could spend half the day slacking off on his phone and the other half in the smoking area. 6 months later, we now get 2 breaks a day. There was only one rule. Don't take advantage. He pushed his luck, and we all found out. Next story. A guy in the mailroom was running an eBay DVD resale business. The problem was that he had eBay open on his computer for 7+ hours a day, and he was posting out everything on the company post accounts. They blocked eBay for all 8,000+ staff. Next story. I worked at a countryside venue that did events. We weren't allowed our own drinks or hot drinks behind the bar. Sometimes you got food offered from kind caterers. Mostly you didn't. Weddings were often 14 or 16-hour shifts. If they kept buying, we had to stay open and keep serving. It wasn't unusual to work 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. for 3 days in a row during the summer months. Some management let us hide in the staff cloakroom while a colleague covered, just to get some energy inside us. They turned a blind eye to food and non-venue purchased drinks, as long as all evidence was cleared away. So the rule was, take your own trash, and the last person to eat from any shared food takes the packaging. One dude left stupid amounts of food just to avoid being it. He'd leave a half-inch slice of pizza, 1 corner curve of a tray bake cake, less than 10% of a rice dish. I had a week off and got back to enough rubbish to fill 2 bins. That was the end of bringing in any food the staff could afford. Next story. Worked at a hotel. An inn for holidays, if you will. Well, I had been working for a while, and usually 2 girls per floor, each cleaning half, and sometimes the rooms were pretty messy, and we would run through our supplies, and it was common for us to borrow some supplies, and we would help each other at the end of shift to restock both carts to make it fair and less complicated for everyone. Well, I never had a problem with this until the new employee. Let's call her Becky. Well, Becky would borrow supplies, not replace them, and would often not help resupply the carts either, both or even her own. And it was becoming a problem because some people were showing up for the next shift to empty supply carts and would have to take time to restock them before use and then restock them afterwards. And complaints were made against Becky, and the manager had to start checking carts before you could leave, essentially making sure people were doing what they were supposed to. Well, Becky's workaround was to use other carts, hardly use her own, and then just stock anything she happens to use from her cart. After Becky got fired for being lazy, we also found out she wasn't actually changing the sheets, just remaking the beds. So gross. A new rule got put into place. No sharing, and we still had to have our carts checked at the end of shift. Our manager became a micromanager after that, and I ended up leaving not long after when I had a gallbladder attack, and my manager didn't believe me when I said I needed to leave to go to the hospital. I turned in the ER sick note to the big boss and explained why I was quitting. Next story. A whole factory full of them. We had these massive vending machines, and everyone had a dongle that entitled everyone to 2 free hot drinks and 50 pence off a snack. There was a code for a couple of people in management that it also allowed them to get a free drink or snack for clients. Somehow this code got out, and the machines were being emptied in a day with 0 money going in. Same monkeys on the Xmas do absolutely rinsed in open bar. Last orders call went out, and diabetic Dave orders 5 triple whiskeys for himself. Every Xmas party after was relegated to pizzas in the office. Next story. A relaxed attitude towards bar expenses, until one training event at a nicer than usual hotel that led to a small group gradually working up the shelf without realizing they were ordering 40 quid a pop shots of single malt and running up a bill of over $1,000 for the night. 1 drink with dinner after that, rest at your own expense. Next story. I worked at a youth hostel in London where we got a free bed and a bunch of food bought for us in return for 20 hours a week work. Was a fun few months. The food included cooking oil. One guy decided he was allowed to use all the cooking oil to deep fry chips on the stove, but then had a couple of drinks and forgot he was cooking. The oil exploded and caused a big fire. Luckily no one was hurt, but it caused a lot of smoke damage, and we had to ring the fire brigade, and it woke everyone up. Amazingly, management didn't change any policies, didn't give a proper warning, and didn't fire the guy. Next story. I used to work on a door where they'd let you have a drink from behind the bar during your shift, and as many as you wanted after. Sometimes me and the lads would have a full night out after our shift. Anyone who wanted to come down was welcome, and drank free too. Same applied to all the staff. One of the Baramids got completely smashed during her shift one night and could barely stand up. I'm not sure how word got to the upper management, but after that night, it was Coke on tap only. Next story. We used to be able to do weekend overtime to catch up on work that we hadn't managed to do during the week. Manager got suspicious of how often one guy was putting in for overtime, so checked his work. He then admitted that he'd log on and go back to bed, and didn't actually have work to do. Whole team weekend overtime ban, which was double pay. Next story. Many years ago, I worked in a large office. We were allowed to use the phones for private calls. Not for long chats, just almost emergencies. Then Jeffrey spoiled it for us all. He was phoning the cricket line 20+ times a day. Moron. Next story. My old workplace had a very generous sick pay package. 6 months full pay, 6 months half pay, followed by decision to further it if needs be at the discretion of the partner in charge of the team. Otherwise, it's statutory beyond the 12 months. The sick pay clock was reset after 6 months of attendance. We had a guy who would become ill, take the 6 months, return for just the amount of time to refresh his allowance, and then become ill again and take a further 6 months. Eventually, after a couple of bouts of this, all employees were offered an above-inflation pay rise. But to access it, you had to sign a new contract, reducing your sick pay to 4 weeks. Thanks, Gordon. Next story. We didn't have a tracker. Used to run errands in the van if ahead of schedule. Worked perfectly and no one cared, until others started doing all their errands regardless if they completed their jobs. Next thing you know, we have trackers. Next story. We used to be allowed to use our company trucks for personal use, within reason. It was nice for Home Depot runs or throwing a kayak in the back. Then that weird SoCal guy Paul was driving from LA to Utah to stalk his ex-wife every weekend. And the cops got involved, and the vehicle policy was quickly updated. Next story. Yes, I used to work in a warehouse that packed food products for big names. And if we ever had damaged goods come in, or products were near their expire date, we would get staff release. But one day, someone filled their car up, and there was nothing for anyone else. So it was stopped and never returned. Next story. The guy in the office who didn't wash. It smelled like his socks had got to the point where they were a science experiment. Mother Nature doing some innovative things in there. Next story. I work in the civil service. We used to have epic pub sojourns on a Friday night, until 2 of my colleagues had a very public affair. Now we're strictly gift card. Next story. WFH policy. Our team were flexible. We aimed for 50% in office, and we had gotten into a routine of set days WFH. We changed narrative to performance-based rather than hours worked. As we worked hard and over hours when needed, Performance of two members of staff reduced lots, and they rarely came to work. Boss discovered one was working and homeschooling their kids as they made a blog about working mums, how to homeschool whilst working. Another got rid of childcare and was looking after 3 kids under 5, discovered as her kids kept appearing in meetings. We can now only WFH 1 day a week and have frequent checks of hours worked. Next story, the guy at work who did substances on he boss's desk on Friday, free fridge drinks, and WhatsApp the photo to the group with management in who had left. Really ruined the free Friday fridge drinks for a lot of people. Next story, yep, we have a pretty generous snack budget, and we had been keeping our break room fairly well stocked for several years running, easily. This one guy gets hired and single-handedly cleans it out every time we visit the local shop and restock it. Did it for a solid year plus before supervision finally decided enough was enough and just stopped allowing us to use the snack budget. Fortunately, he's gone now, and I sometimes end up in a position where I can go to the store and restock. So I've been doing it and trying to ensure everyone knows not to abuse the privilege, because it can and will be taken away. Next story, we had a beer fridge that got unlocked on Fridays at circa 3 p.m. In one of the weekly all company meetings, 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, it was mentioned that as we are all sensible adults, they will leave it unlocked for us to use as we want. One lad went straight to the fridge after the meeting, 10 a.m., and cracked one open. 10:15 a.m., the beer fridge was relocked again. Next story, there's one military where the soldiers weren't just banned from one bar because they can't be trusted to have a beer, but banned from an entire city for years because 3 soldiers couldn't be trusted not to abuse a girl. Next story, call center line closes at 5. Unofficially, everyone could avoid answering from 4:55 as nothing can be done with a call in that time. Of course, the class prefect had to bring it to the manager's attention, so now everyone ends up doing unpaid overtime if their last-minute caller overruns, which they will. Next story, I work for an agency that used to allow people to use their phones when there were no customers. But then some guy ended up embezzling $3,000 from customers by having them send the money to his phone instead of the tap-to-pay card readers. Next story, 1991 San Jose, Amdahl computer graveyard shift. Right when before started, graveyard was 12 to 6. Days 6 to 3, and swing 3 to 12. We shared workspaces, so overlap was wasteful. During some day training, one of the graveyard guys kept ribbing the others on days and swings how awesome it was to work 6 hours, with an hour break. Well, they complained and we had to go 11 to 7. F you, Rob. Next story, US manager here. An employee came to work wear 6-inch heels. So high, she could only take itsy-bitsy steps using her arms to keep from toppling over. Reminded me of a T-Rex. From an HR viewpoint, I worried about her tripping over a paperclip and breaking an ankle. She is why the entire company had a heel height rule, nothing more than 2 inches. Next story. Worked in a hotel with someone who brought his Xbox in and plugged it into the CCTV monitor. Got caught and told this wasn't on and shouldn't be doing that. His response the next night was to use the projector from the events department and project it onto the wall instead. Next story. Almost exactly the same story, except we worked in a cinema and this was the top floor. Leon decided to watch a pirated version of the film he was checking tickets for on his phone, without headphones, and didn't even pause the thing while customers were present. He was an idiot. Weirdly, I don't think that was even the incident that got him fired in the end. Next story. It's not happened yet, but I strongly suspect my work will crack down on flexible working in the future. We have the classic 10 to 4 core hours, but there's some people who have a tendency to keep arriving later and later in the day, a number of whom consistently turn up at 10:30, if not later. A few of these coworkers can get away with it because they're key to the business and tend to leave very late to compensate, but there's definitely a fair few people who can't make such claims and won't have much of a leg to stand on if they get scrutinized over it. Our HR team sent an email at one point reiterating this not too long ago, and nothing's improved. I suspect the next step will be enforcing disciplinary action over it, incorporating a way of tracking working hours, or even straight up removing the policy and making everyone return to full-time in office doing a 9 to 5. As someone who has never had a steady sleeping pattern, I love having flexi-time policies. Some weeks I'm arriving at 8:30 every day, but then other weeks I'm struggling to sleep well, and the extra time in bed I gain by starting work at 10 makes a huge difference for me. I'd be really frustrated if they remove it, but I can definitely see the potential of it happening. Next story, many over the years, had one who was booking from 8 o'clock to 23:30 every day, as we were paid, at the time, from door to door. He was going to the pub straight from work every day and booking the time until he got home or to the hotel every day. Next story, we would get breakfast during exam days on the company card until we took it a tad far on the breakfasts. I remember asking my colleague if she wanted in on breakfast, despite not being a part of the exam setup. They shortly after told us no more breakfast orders. I mean, if we're staying at a hotel, we really didn't need breakfast in the office. Next story, I was a manager at a motorway services restaurant, and I used to let the staff cook their break food fresh on the grill rather than get it from the self-service restaurant. It was a small perk, until staff from another team tried to do it with another manager and brought it all crashing down. No one was allowed to use the fresh grill ever, and everyone was furious at the team who caused the problem, as they had appreciated that I let them have a small perk. Next story. My brother once messed this up. He had a night job watching servers or something. Basically never had to do anything, but someone needed to be there for security and to reset machines if they stopped working. Maybe about twice a week he'd get a phone call to reset something. He was allowed to bring a laptop or handheld to play games, watch films on to fill the time, so long as he paid attention to the phone. He watched a butt of anime, played a lot of Fallout. Life was good. One day they call him and he doesn't answer. They log in remotely through the camera and find him fast asleep at the desk. They had to send someone out to wake him up and bollock him. Then it happened again. This time he's warned. At this point, a policy of checking on the cameras regularly is implemented, and the other guys in this position are pissed off. Everyone was now getting micromanaged, and were getting phone calls telling them off for having drinks in the server rooms and stuff, or questioning time spent in the toilet. The following week, my brother walked into work with a pillow and a blanket under one arm. The guy he was relieving was friends with his boss, and immediately called to report him, sacked him on the spot for clearly intending to sleep through another shift. Next story? Right. Our IT firewall policy was pretty basic. Block all incoming traffic, but allow all outgoing pretty much, which means you could watch YouTube, listen to Spotify, stream BBC Player, etc. without issue, if it was your lunch break or whatever. Anyway, our information security guy used to work from home 99% of the year and only come into the office for audits. Anyway, this guy bought his personal laptop, which he used to torrent from, and put it onto our office network. This idiot was seeding his torrent downloads and basically destroyed our 1 gigabyte network using up all the data. Anyway, our IT manager was like, well, maybe we should be more restrictive. So, yeah. Next story. Worked at a well-known pizza chain over 10 years ago. Formed a good crew of mates at work who had similar interests, of the herbal variety, but could all still put the work in to a high standard. We would routinely swap closing shifts around with people who didn't want to close the shop down, totally allowed by management, so me and my mates could have a few joints and clean up while listening to music and eating the leftover pizzas. No big deal. We always used to go round the corner to have a crafty joint as we knew there were cameras. New guy started work at the well-known pizza chain. Started chatting off about how much he smokes, so we switched some shifts around so he got put on a closing shift with us. The guy walks out in front of the CCTV camera and sparks a gigantic 3-paper joint as soon as the shop closes. The next day we all got a blocking and we weren't allowed to all close the store up again. We were fuming with him as he ruined some genuine quality hangout time. Next story, used to get free first-class food on the trains. This was on a route where the food was pretty good. A guy I worked with used to finish their shift at 1 p.m., get a train down to London, wait until the first train heading north that would have a full 3-course dinner, take that train, have the dinner, then catch the next southbound train back to his home. Having free food was stopped not long after that. Next story. For years, there have been quizzes held in the canteen. The social club always managed to get away with buying slabs of cans and wine, despite a buzzkill HR lead who is making it her life's work to stop drinking at work. Then we had a student on a year's work placement pass out at a quiz. The head of the site had to come out. He is fine, as he has worked at my place as long as I have, and has seen some of the more memorable drunken legends from 20 years ago. But HR buzzkill saw her chance, and then we got some drink at work policy. No more booze events on site, etc., and a load of other crap. Never go to any work functions off site now, as it's 2 drinks each with Buzzkill and her gang looking for scalps from people enjoying themselves.